Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, kia ore, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. We are so very honored and so happy that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. How do we do that? By sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations that we have with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Castbox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Today we have three wonderful guests celebrating their books. Nedda Lewers will be starting us off. Then we'll look back at our conversation with Christina Pellegrino. And to top off our show, we'll be traveling north to the beautiful neighborhood of East Boston to speak with Christine Ritchie McNamee.
You've heard the whispers. You've seen it on TV. You may have even seen the movie. Now it's time to bring Dungeons and Dragons directly to you with D&D for Hire!
More than just a game, D&D lets you step into the role of a hero you create and guide them on fantastical adventures with your friends. Perfect for beginners and experts alike, D&D for Hire is sure to delight and entertain your kids for weeks on end.
Such a fun game. There are endless possibilities. There's so many things that you can do. It's so much fun.
Our son Eli loves D&D. It's like his favorite thing to do all week.
I was like 15 when I joined. I'm 21 now. There are people who are in our party, really learn to come out of their shells.
Whether you're near or far, whether you're looking for a birthday party or a campaign to keep you adventuring for years to come, D&D for Hire has you covered. Learn more at dndforhire.com. That's dndforhire.com. D&D for Hire, bringing the adventure to you. D&D for Hire runs games digitally over Zoom or in person in select areas.
Hey, quick question. Are you raising a reader? Are you ready to embark on a journey of imagination and adventure with your family? Then look no further than Dear Fam, the ultimate destination for family reading fun. Join the Dear Fam movement and unlock your child's love for reading with Dear Fam, the reading journal tracking app. Develop critical thinking skills. Set up reading goals with your child as they earn reading badges. Get notified when your child shares their reading journals. Share with family, friends, and teachers. Start your family's next reading adventure today with Dear Fam. That's spelled DEARFAM, where reading together means bonding forever. Dear Fam, now available on the App Store and at Google Play. Dear Fam. Before we invite our guests into the studio, I want to ask you, are you looking for a unique way to support diverse voices in literature? Introducing By YQ Book Fairs, where every page tells a story of empowerment, culture, and diversity. By YQ Book Fairs is a 100% women and minority-owned initiative showcasing a hand-picked selection of diverse books that celebrate inclusivity and representation. From captivating narratives to thought-provoking poetry, our curated collection has something for everyone. And hosting a By YQ Book Fair is a super easy and a fantastic way to raise funds for your organization or cause. So why wait? Visit buyobq.com today to learn more about how you can bring the magic of diverse literature to your community while supporting women and minority-owned businesses. Join us right now from beautiful Southern California. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new middle grade novel. It's called Daughters of the Lamp. Please welcome to the show, Nedda Lewers. Hey, Nedda, how are you?
Hi, Jed. How are you?
I'm delighted. I can't wait for you to tell us about Daughters of the Lamp. I was reading on your website a little bit about it. It sounds like a really exciting mystery.
Yes, it's a middle grade fantasy, sort of along the lines of Percy Jackson in that it's rather than being inspired by Greek mythology, it's sort of inspired by Arabic folklore. But kids that love that fantasy adventure rooted in mythology and folklore will love this story. And it's about 12-year-old Egyptian American Sahara Rashad, who is very much a logical minded kid who likes explanations for everything, who goes to Egypt for the first time, visits her family, and then realizes there's a lot more going on than I thought here, including the bride to be. My cousins say she's a witch, and all these crazy things are happening. And my family just may have this really magical legacy that I wasn't prepared for. And now what do I do with it?
I love that. Just the way you present that. I went to see my family. I was so excited. And then I found out my cousin's a witch.
Yes, the bride to be. Because she's there for her uncle's wedding. And the bride to be, she doesn't love her. From the beginning, she thinks she is a little witchy in the sense that she's not very nice, but her cousins, Naima and Fanta, think, particularly her cousin Naima, that this is an actual witch.
Ooh, and it conjures up so much. I remember being that age, that middle grade age,
Yes.
and just, it's like, yeah, this stuff, maybe it can really happen.
It's so true. You know, when I was writing the book, I was thinking particularly about an incident when I was around 9 years old, 10 years old, where we were taking this shortcut from our building complex to the candy store that we went to almost like every day. But the shortcut was a little desolate. And there was just this sort of tarp wrapped up. And it was me and a few neighborhood friends, and we just had this whole, I don't know who said it first. They were like, there's a dead body in there. And it became this whole thing in our heads. And it's like when you're a kid, you know, you take this one thing, this one visual or one thing that you hear, and it becomes this huge thing. And I love that about the middle grade years.
Yeah. I wonder what it'd be like, because, well, you're a lot younger than me. When I grew up, you know, the idea that you could talk on the telephone that wasn't connected by a wire to the wall, that was like magical to me. Nowadays, I mean, you know, you and I, we're talking on opposite sides of the continent, and oftentimes I am talking to people on opposite sides of the world and seeing their faces, and that was just unimaginable not too long ago. I'm wondering if kids still are able to imagine the unimaginable, and I wonder what that could be.
Yeah, it's true. They have so much competing for their imagination, and they don't have, I know this with my own daughters, they don't have as much time because they're being fed all these images so quickly, and they don't have as much downtime as we had, right?
Mm-hmm.
To like really, I had that moment like with my friends taking this shortcut because we walked to places and did a lot of things outside, and a lot was born from that. But I think they also have different ways to channel their imagination that we didn't necessarily have too. So there's pros and cons, but it's interesting when I was writing the story, it reads Sahara's portion reads very contemporary, but I purposely set her story in the late 1980s for two reasons. One, it just was a different experience traveling at that time. I know for myself, I grew up in Queens, New York, and then I would go every summer to Cairo, Egypt, which is, you know, Sahara's having this experience for the first time. But it is such a different experience to do that in the 80s than it is now. And in the 80s, and before then, it's like when you went to Egypt, you were very much cut off from American culture. It was, you know, once you got there, it was you were watching Egyptian media. There wasn't a Netflix. You weren't streaming things. You weren't able to contact your friends as easily as you are here. And I know when I took my daughters in 2018, like they were still kind of like streaming Friends on Netflix while they're sitting in the Cairo hotel, or we have just gotten back from the pyramids, and still very much connected to their friends through FaceTime and through texting. Whereas I very much was entrenched in the culture because I had no other choice. I was cut off from, home in a lot of ways, which was great too, because I really got to experience, Egypt and what it meant to be there and not have all the other stuff in the other stuff in the background. So it's one of the reasons I said it in the 80s is because I really wanted Sahara to have that experience.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I remember the first time I traveled to Puerto Rico with my beautiful wife, and that was 35 years ago. And we very much we could make a long distance call, but it would require me either putting in about $10 worth of quarters into a payphone or tapping in that 20-digit credit card number that I had from AT&T. And you were there and you were immersed in that culture. And as opposed to, I just came back from a month in El Salvador, and I feel I very much experienced El Salvador and was in the country and experienced a lot of the media and the culture. But when I got back to the hotel or the Airbnb, I was able to pick up my Kindle and watch whatever I wanted to watch on Netflix.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Now, you were mentioning you traveled to Cairo back when you were a kid. Is this book in some way a bit autobiographical?
I wouldn't say it's autobiographical, but I definitely wanted to explore the experience of first-generation Americans and what it feels like and what it looks like to have one foot in America and one foot in another country, which is definitely the experience that I had, and which is home. And Queens very much felt like home to me. But so did Egypt when I would go too, even though they were very different, countries. So I wanted to explore that experience of sort of being torn and learning how to navigate having a foot in both worlds.
Yeah. Interesting. I hope you don't mind me asking, was it back in the 80s, there was tension between the United States and Egypt and other countries in the Middle East, as unfortunately this still is today. But, and you were mentioning you one foot in each, and in one city you have your immediate family and your buddies that you were living with and hanging out with and running past that rolled up tarp that may have held a body in it. And then the other hand, you have this extended family that love you and you love them. What was that like being there and knowing that, our countries aren't getting along right now?
I think it was tricky. I think it was trickier in America than it was in Egypt, because when I would go to Egypt, there was a lot of my brother and I were sort of like the cool kids from America. That's how we were viewed. And there was a lot of respect for American culture and particularly for American media. So all our extended family there, the younger ones in particular, would be so excited to hear about what movies were coming out and what songs we were listening to, because they would get all that stuff, but much later than us. I think in America it was trickier, particularly growing up and being at the time when they're at the height of sort of some of the terrible terrorist things that happened in the late 80s, being in upper elementary and in junior high school, and just having kids that maybe all they heard was something in passing on the news, and having them come to me and say your people are terrorists or that. So I definitely experienced some of that. and people just not understanding that there's so much more to the Middle East and to the culture than what is being shown in the media or perpetuated in the media. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, because I felt like kids learn so much about other characters and other people's shoes by reading books and seeing these perspectives. And it's such a powerful vehicle for compassion and understanding and seeing viewpoints that aren't your own. But at the same time, Sahara is, I hope she is, a very relatable character. And she's 12 years old. And there may be a 12-year-old kid who, you know, hasn't had her experience of navigating both worlds, but can relate to her identity questions, can relate to some of the things she's struggling with in her family or her friendships. And so there's universalities, but I think through the experience of seeing them through her lens, it creates this bridge between the two cultures.
One of the things I love about books, and it didn't kind of dawn on me until I was older, and I was comparing, I think it might have been Mystic River. And I compared the experience I had reading the book to the experience I had when I saw the movie. And the experience with the book was so much more vivid and difficult, because in the book, the story was told in about 2 hours in the movie. And it was a great, wonderful movie, very riveting. But there was one scene in particular when the dad was running down to the playground and he knew there was a dead body and he was afraid it was his daughter. And that scene played out in the movie over about, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
In the book, it was page after page after page. And not only did we see him running down the street and the police lights and the crowds, but we were also inside his mind and deep inside there. And that's the thing that I love about books, and especially as kids are getting older, because you're able to tell so much more of the story, and we're able to experience so much more of the story with books, with a book that will take us multiple hours to read, maybe 10, 15 hours to read, as opposed to, a 28-minute TV series or an hour and a half long movie, or even worse, a 30-second TikTok video that's purporting to tell us the whole story.
Yeah, I love that too, Jed. I love that when you're reading a book, you are so tapped into the character's interiority, particularly if the author does a good job of letting you into which is definitely the case in Mystic River, lets you into their feelings and their thoughts. And I think the other thing that I love about books, I have a strict rule in my house that anything that has been made for TV or for movies, that my daughters need to read the book first. And that's just because of my own experience of having read a book and then watched the movie, or watched a movie first and then gone back to read the book. I feel like always when I read the book first, I have a chance to create some mental images of what's happening in the story, what I think the characters look like. And if I watch the movie, then somebody's telling me what that is. And I think there's also more of an opportunity. What I love about books is there's a space for the reader too. It's a dance between the reader and the author. And I like to give my readers space to bring themselves into the story and have an experience that isn't just based on the words that I've written on the page, but what they are bringing. And I feel like there's more of an opportunity for that in books than there is in maybe a TV show or a movie.
Yeah. What a great rule to have. I love that. I love it. You know,
my kids don't always love it.
Well,
it is the rule.
That's that's part of the problem with, not a problem, but it's part of being a kid. You know, the grown-ups in your family make some decisions. I was so glad that there's a series that I love featuring this character, Reacher. And Amazon has just recently made a series, which I enjoyed a lot, but very big in terms of stature, but not big in terms of physicality. He made the original movie, and I know that he's my size, vertically challenged, and he's playing this person who's supposed to be a monster, like 8 feet tall, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't buy this movie.
I hear you.
Yeah. What, we've talked a little bit about the story and about your connection to it. I'm wondering, what kind of conversations do you think families can have as we encourage families all the time to co-read? If you can't read aloud a book with your kid, especially a middle grade novel, YA title, there's no reason to prevent you, and nothing to prevent you from co-reading it, and then talking about it over the dinner table or on your way to soccer or ballet or school. What kind of conversations do you think families can have as they're reading Daughters of the Lamp together?
Oh gosh, I would love for families to co-read it. I think that's such a great experience. I've done that with my own kids. I think there are themes in there, one in particular that just lend themselves to family discussions. And one of the things, so the book is primarily written in Sahara's POV, but there are about 10 to 12 chapters that are written in her ancestor's POV, who lives 1,000 years earlier. And kind of this is where the magical legacy starts. Her name is Morgana. And I wrote it that way because I was, at the time when I was planning the book, I was heavily inspired by Louis Sachar's Holes. And I loved the way in that book he has the character Stanley, who's in the present world, but then he also flashes back to his ancestors who have this sort of family curse. And at the start of the stories are very much far apart, and then they just converge till the end. They're sort of like a marriage of the two timelines. And it made me think a lot about how even when we don't know, because a lot of, particularly for the women in my family, I don't know a lot of their histories. My grandmother on my mom's side, her mom, passed away very, very young. So I don't know a lot about my maternal grandmother. But at the same time, there's this feeling of like, not only do you inherit eye color and hair color and other characteristics, but I do feel very much that you are passed along their journeys and their failures and their triumphs and their successes and all of that. And all of that plays a part in your own development and your story. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just doing the same, repeating patterns and doing the same thing. But there's this feeling of like, stuff has happened before me, and what am I going to do with it? And I think kids and parents it will open a dialogue between like, what was your childhood like? And Sahara very much has to realize that her dad is not just her dad, but he was a person before her. Mm-hmm. And had relationships before her, and she sees him in a new light, especially when she goes to Egypt, and all of a sudden he's surrounded by all this extended family, and he's somebody's uncle or somebody's best friend. And I think it just provides, I hope it provides an opportunity for parents and kids to have discussions about their own ancestry and their own history and their own triumphs and even failures that have been passed down, and what kids think about that. And
yeah,
so I hope that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. The more our kids can see the human side of us, the better. I tell young parents all the time, that pedestal that your kids put you up on, get off that thing as soon as you can.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Nedda, where can we go to find out more about Daughters of the Lamp and also find out more about you?
So you can go to my website, neddalewers.com. There's a ton of information about me, about Daughters of the Lamp. There's actually, I'm so lucky because the sequel for Daughters of the Lamp, if kids really enjoy Daughters of the Lamp, is coming out just a few months after Children of the Wind. So you can learn about both books. I'm also active on Instagram at my handle is at Nedda Lewers Books, and I post a ton of stuff there just about the writing journey, all this success I've been having, which I'm so grateful for, and the buzz that the book is getting. And I was a former teacher, so I've been making some school visits, which have been a highlight of this journey for me. So yeah, follow me there. I love connecting with readers.
Awesome. We've had a really wonderful time speaking to the author of Daughters of the Lamp, a great middle grade novel from our guest, Nedda Lewers. Hey, Nedda, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jed.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Adventures of Patch, delightful series of adventure stories written by David Gibby. Overwhelmed by endless hours of screen time, craving a wholesome escape for your little ones? Introduce them to the enchanted world of The Adventures of Patch the Bear. Crafted with love and imagination, these tales serve as a passport to wonder-filled adventures far from the digital buzz. Let Patch light up your child's world, allowing them to explore, dream, and imagine beyond boundaries. This is a really fun series that you and your kids will absolutely adore. The Adventures of Patch, written by David Gibby. Joining us right now from the beautiful Jersey Shore, not the one that was on MTV all those years ago. Our guest is here to celebrate the publication of her debut picture book. It's called Buster and the Brain Bully. Please welcome to the show, Christina Pellegrino. Hey, Christina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jed?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to learn all about Buster and the Brain Bully.
So, yes, this pretty much our book is inspired by our therapy dog work. We committed to doing that for a couple years. And when things shut down last year, we decided to sit down and start writing and came up with something, and the rest is kind of history from there. But this is pretty much our therapy dog work with kids, filtered through a children's book, covers on mental health and just our experiences working with kids, and we hope that it helps to inspire that conversation. And we felt that the brain bully was something that kids could relate to, because every kid knows what a bully is. Mm-hmm. So you think if there's a bully in your brain, it's something that's kind of on their level where they can kind of decipher what that means. And
can you talk a little bit more about that idea? I love the idea. It is definitely something that I know kids can wrap their hands around, that you have this thing inside you that's bullying you and tormenting you, because that's what a bully, ultimately is doing, is tormenting somebody. Can you talk a little bit more about the mental health issues that you're addressing in the book?
So we're really addressing anxiety, fears. It can touch on depression as well. I myself have struggled for years, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I had always said that a child should never have to go through this. During those innocent years, it shouldn't be something that they should be struggling with. So I always had this desire to write a book to help people. And when we started working with kids, and we specifically worked with a classroom, a special education ELA classroom that we did Buster's Book Club for, and these were all kids that were struggling with reading, and he motivated them to read, and we became an integrated part of that class. So just to see what he did for them, and then especially when the pandemic hit, the anxiety in our kids was just, it was unbelievable. And we continued with virtual visits, and then we're able to move to outdoor visits. But the anxiety they were all experiencing, and us being able to be a constant source of support, whether it was through the computer or then outdoor visits, they really were the inspiration behind this book, because I just saw how much he was able to reach them, and it was so heartwarming and became our story. So it's very much fact-based fiction, and we're just very excited to be able to share it with people. And our kids read it to now read it to him in our Read to Dog session, so that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
For them to be reading him his own story. We have their testimonials in the back, so they see their own names in it. So it's really become just like a community-based project where we really got all the kids who inspired the book behind it, and making bookmarks for our book launch party and signs for things. So it's really awesome. It's, beyond just a book for us. It's really, we integrated everyone and made them all part of the experience, which was awesome.
Now, what's the difference? We've had guests on talking about dogs, kids reading to dogs, and seems pretty straightforward. What's Buster's role in the hospital? What's he doing with folks in hospitals?
So just, really serving as a distraction, as something that, he walks in and, it just brightens their days. So we've had, we work several different units. So we've worked from the emergency department to keep the staff calm. So they're coming in with, a trauma that just came in, and they see a dog walking through the halls, and it just gives them a moment to just kind of pause. And then we've also sat with patients going through cancer treatment. So sit through them through their infusions. They pet him, and petting a dog is always, very relaxing. And so just spending time with them. And then we've worked in pediatrics as well. And, with them, it's really about, distracting them from whatever treatment they are. We've sat with a kid through physical therapy before. Other kids who just want like a quick snuggle. They're missing their dog that's at home. So, at the hospital, what's nice is that every time it's a different experience. Sometimes it's support for a family who maybe just got bad news, and just a quick snuggle from a dog, helps them separate it from it a little bit. So, it really, it's just the possibilities are endless. People coming out of surgery. So in every different unit we work in, it's kind of a different response.
Mm-hmm.
But he's really there to just, provide a little bit of comfort in a time where, maybe someone just got a diagnosis, or, it was an emergency that they're in the hospital, and, they're missing their family or something like that. So.
Cool.
It really varies.
Yeah. Now, I have to tell you, it's awesome that Buster is able to do this, and Buster has this personality that just radiates love and calm and chill. But you must have, I think there's a story that's not being told here, and the fact that you shared with us that you discovered that Buster was a therapy dog has kind of helped you through a dark moment in your life. That, to me, it's one thing to get through that depression, and that's wonderful, or anxiety, whatever it was that you were dealing with.
It was both. I had the whole
you had everything.
Everything.
So here you are, you're dealing with that, and thankfully Buster was in your life when you were able to help you, and Buster was part of your therapy along with the other therapies that you're getting. But you took it a step further, and how did you get this idea that, okay, I'm better now, I'm feeling better, and Buster helped me through this, so I want to put myself out there and help other people. I mean, for somebody who's completely healthy, the idea of going out and meeting strangers and going into a classroom, that's like really anxiety inducing. How did you deal with that?
So, for me, I still struggle. I am completely treatment resistant. So, this book is part of my healing here. This was a huge overcome of my brain bullies in going after this. Is something I wanted to do for years, and I never thought I'd be able to accomplish. But, ever since I started struggling, I I always wanted to help other people. I'm like, no one should go through this, and I can never stay long enough to do it. I can never stay stable enough. And, so many failed treatments I had, and, I wasn't able to work, and Buster would just lay on my bed with me all day and wouldn't leave my side. And so we really created just this unbelievable bond. And, in doing this work with other people, like I said, I had held off on getting tested for so long because I was so anxious. I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And once I said, you know what, this means something to me, I'm passionate about it, I want to be able to share him. And I think that if I can do this, it actually will help my well-being in being able to help other people if I could get past it. And at the beginning, it was very, very hard, because I would be very anxious at visits. And, but I knew there was a bigger picture there, that what we were doing was meaning something. And even though at the time I may have not been able to feel it, that it was beyond what I was going through, and I was able to kind of separate myself from it and say, I know what we're doing is making a difference for these people.
One of the things you mentioned the fact that, you have this anxiety and you had all these treatments and they blew up on you. They didn't take hold, and you weren't able to get better until you had this thing that you wanted to do for other people.
Yep.
Do you think that that's something in you? It's like, I wasn't able to pull this together for me, but I was able to pull me together for others. Was that a big part of your current success as
Absolutely. I mean, this is clearly what I'm meant to be doing. It's still really sinking in that this really happened, and it's out there, and, people are reading it. It's incredible. And just every day I talk about mental health now, where before it was like, it's a very hard topic to talk about. And especially from the beginning, wanted to write a mental health memoir, about what I went through. I wanted to start a nonprofit to sponsor kids who couldn't afford mental health care because so much of insurance doesn't cover it. And it's called Save a Smile. I had all these plans, but I'm like, how can you run a nonprofit if you can't even get out of bed? So for so many years, it was like, I want to find a way to help people, but I can't even help myself. So it took me a long time to, really figure it out. But then there was just a leap of faith with going for the pet therapy work. I realized it couldn't work. So I said, look, you know what? I'm going to dedicate myself to volunteering with Buster for a year. I moved back home, to help with expenses and everything, and really just, this is something I want to do. And it turned into 2 years because, COVID happened. And then it turned into, I would have never imagined it would have turned into this book. And the book is just so far beyond a book for us. It's become a catalyst now for change. We already had a special mental health photo shoot. A photographer is doing a Faces of Mental Health series and reached out to us because she saw the book. We're doing collaborations with other authors whose books are also on mental health advocacy. And it's just a very unique story because there's a lot out there. There are a lot of other therapy dog teams that have written books, and we have many of them, and we share them with our kids and let them know it's one of Buster's colleagues. So we've had that. But it's all about, the dog's process, how they became a therapy dog. And then there's your mindfulness books out there, which are strictly focused on mental health. And we combine the two of them. And you really delve into Buster's character that, he's a dog that has feelings and emotions, and he's struggling with figuring out how to deal with them. And he finds his calling in therapy dog work, and it's by serving others, he serves himself. And I always say we kind of mirror each other in that respect.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I know people are going to want to know where they can find out more about you and find out more about Buster and the Brain Bully.
So Buster has his own Instagram account, which we do all things related to our work and some fun Buster antics as well. And that's busters.burrow is his Instagram. And then our book is pretty much everywhere you can buy it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. For international, there's Dymox, there's Book Depository. So it's all over the place, which is great. So wherever your favorite place to buy a book is, I'm sure you can find us there. So.
Awesome. That's right. And, if you walk into your local independent bookshop that has limited shelf space, you might not find Buster and the Brain Bully right there, but you can ask those helpful folks behind the counter if they can order it for you. And that's easy. Get there in 2 or 3 days. And and that's actually a great help for the author when you're letting a bookseller know, hey, I'm interested in this book. It's bringing the book to the attention of the bookseller or the librarian. And so it's a great help. Amazon is awesome. They were there. They got me my dog treats during the pandemic, but they have enough of our money right now. So let's support those small independent bookshops. Christina, I've had a great time speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your story, and thank you for the work you're doing with Buster, and thank Buster for us. And did he have trouble with the Zoom meetings? Did he fall asleep?
Yes, so he's not a big fan of the computer. He gets very confused hearing voices and then can't, people aren't here. So we've had some interesting virtual reading sessions where he's looking out the window. So, yeah, he sat this one out.
Well, that's great. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of Buster and the Brain Bully, the debut picture book from our guest, Christina Pellegrino. Hey, Christina, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org, clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Oh, my friends, I can't wait. This is going to be a fun episode of the show. Joining us from one of the most wonderful places in the entire world, the beautiful neighborhood of East Boston. Our guest is here today to celebrate Logan and the missing crown jewels. Please welcome to the show, Christine Ritchie McNamee. Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. How are you?
I am wonderful. People may have heard me. I talk about, the show comes from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville here in Boston. At the far other end of the city of Boston, you have to drive through downtown. It's maybe 12, 15 miles from my house to Christine's house. It could take a week and a half with traffic to drive that far. But East Boston, if you've ever flown into Boston, Logan Airport, you've flown into the lovely neighborhood of East Boston. It is such a beautiful place. It was where my first apartment when I became a grown-up, when I became an adult. I don't know if I've grown up yet, but I lived there for a number of years. It's such a wonderful place, such a diverse place, and it has absolutely the best view of the city of Boston from anywhere.
It really does.
Yeah, it really does. And now Logan, the hero of your story, is a dog that is named after our airport.
It is, and it's also named after our dog I used to have for 16 years. I had a Cocker Spaniel named Logan.
Very cool.
He was named after the airport.
Yes, yes. So tell us about Logan. What kind of a dog is Logan, and why are we going to want to read about his adventures?
Well, Logan is a very adventurous dog, and he has a magic bone. And no one knows about his magic bone except for him.
A magic bone?
A magic bone, yes, he does.
And
so
what can he do with this magic bone?
The magic bone gives him special powers where he can vanish into thin air and appear somewhere else.
Very cool. That's kind of like Star Trek.
Yes. In fact, the first Logan book, his family takes him on a vacation to visit his grandparents in Florida. And on the way there, they lose their luggage. So Logan thinks, I can find the luggage and be a hero using my magic bone, and I'll get a big treat, a big reward when I'm finished. So he takes his magic bone, disappears, and he meets animal friends from all around the world. He travels to several different countries to find the luggage.
Wow. That's a journey a lot of actual luggage takes sometimes, I think.
It does. It does. And he meets animals from China, London, France. He goes all over the world, and it teaches the children that, about other countries and nationalities and how we can all work together as a team for a common goal. Plus, it teaches them geography.
What a great message for kids. We love sharing that message, that we are all part of one big, beautiful human family.
That's right.
Yeah. What inspired you to start writing children's books?
Well, ever since I was a child, I used to go to the local library up the street in East Boston here in Orion Heights, and we had a summer reading club. So my mom would take me in the summers, and we would win awards for the number of books we read. And I always used to get lost. I was an only child. I got lost in the stories and the characters. And I used to like to write about who I read about, and I like to write reports. And I just always liked to write stories. Yeah. It was just something I enjoyed.
And that branch of the Boston Public Library in Orion Heights, what a sweet, magical place that was. It was a really tiny branch, as I recall. I've performed there many times.
I may have seen you there because I used to work there as well years ago.
Yeah, see?
I wrote a book about that, too. That's another book I have.
Is that in the Logan series?
No, this one is called Luella and the Librarian.
Luella
about a little girl who gets her first library card, and her relationship with the librarian when her mom takes her there to get her first library card. Basically, it's about me when I was little.
Yeah. Hey, that relationship between librarian and kids, I've mentioned here in the podcast that my relationship with the librarian in our school really kept me in school. I was one of those guys who had a lot of extra energy. They hadn't invented that medicine, and I don't know if it would have helped me. But, I would finish my work and just be a distraction. And thankfully, she told my teacher, send him down. And the library back in the 60s, for me, it was a place where I could create movies and write stories and read books. And actually, we used to do these things called tape radio. And so we were doing podcasts before there was a way to do podcasts.
That's right. Yeah. We used to watch movies at the library. She used to do arts and crafts with us. They'd have story time. But the reading club was a big thing in the summer. And I was so fascinated with books and reading that got me I worked there through some of high school and college.
Yeah. I think nowadays folks are kind of looking at a library and thinking, we don't need the library anymore. We have the internet. We can go on and find anything we want with the touch of our fingers. But I really think that libraries are essential. I think they're really magical places. Can you talk a little bit more about the thing that certain kids can get at the library that they just can't get off a screen or anywhere else?
Well, they get the camaraderie, so to speak, of meeting other kids, hanging out with kids and talking and getting off their phones and tablets and actually using their minds and reading and touching a real book and seeing the pages. That's what the value is, interacting with other kids. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's all about social interaction and talking to other people and creating things. They can do crafts there. They can even do reading groups, story time. It's all about socialization, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot different. The libraries, if you haven't been in a public library lately, you really want to check it out. It's not that old dusty place anymore where you had the librarians walking around and going, shh, 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 They're very vibrant, alive places.
They really are.
Yeah.
And this is the Luella and the Librarian.
There it is.
Basically the Heights Library when I was a kid. Now it's a senior center.
Uh-huh. Wonderful. Wonderful. So in Logan and the Missing Crown Jewels.
Yes.
How do these jewels get to be missing, and where do they come from?
Well, the second book takes us on a trip to Europe with Logan and Winston's family. The crows from the Tower of London, the ravens, they come down to the yard where Logan and Winston and their friends are playing, and they ask for help because the Queen Elizabeth, lost her crown jewels while on the Queen Mary Elizabeth II on her royal tour. So they need help finding them. So basically, they go on the ship and they yet again travel with the magic bone, which Winston didn't even think it existed till he saw it in person for himself. He used to hear stories about it from his older brother Logan. So they go to all different other countries like Scotland, Ireland, Malta, all British colonies, Bermuda, to try to find the Queen's missing crown jewels.
Wow. That sounds...
The Windsor Castle.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, boy. Hey, tell me, Christine, I'm sure you've had a chance to share your book at story times and reading. Talk a little bit about the joy you have of sharing your stories with kids.
I love sharing my stories with kids. In fact, I'll be doing more as in the next couple of months with story time and children's reading programs. They get a kick out of the magic bone when I tell them there's a magic bone and how does he disappear and how does it work. They're fascinating. So they really enjoy it. Plus, they love dogs and animals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But the magic bone is the real thrill of the kids.
Yeah.
They wonder how it works and where did it come from and how did he get it. So it's pretty interesting.
It does. It sounds fascinating. It sounds like a lot of fun. You know, one of the things we love to ask authors is, what kind of conversations do you think families can have as they read a book? What kind of conversations do you think families can have about Logan?
I think it just brings out curiosity. The two Logan books would be more towards geography.
Uh-huh.
The parents and the children can talk about traveling to France, Italy, Ireland, China. They can have discussions about different countries, different nationalities, things to do with the countries, people from different countries, based on the animals from different countries. I tried to coordinate like Australia with kangaroos for the animal.
Mm-hmm.
Spain, we had a bull. So they can learn about the different animals in the different countries, but it just teaches about how everybody works together as a team for a common goal.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love that. And I think the Logan books and your other book would be a really fun additions to family libraries. Where can we go to find out more about you and more about your books, Christine?
In fact, actually all of my books, but specifically the Logan books, are out available in Logan Airport. So the traveling public can pick them up in the terminals at Hudson Ink by Hudson bookstores and the Hudson gift shops.
Wonderful. That is fantastic. And can folks connect with you on the web?
They can connect with me on Instagram at Easty Author. And I am also on Threads under Easty Author. And that's about it, basically. Yes,
Yeah.
They can find the books in Winthrop, on Amazon, at the airport.
That's wonderful. And, you know, if you do fly in and pick up Christine's book at the airport, do yourself a favor. Take a side trip into beautiful East Boston. It's such an amazing place. It's very, very diverse, both ethnically and socioeconomically. But there's some great Italian restaurants, great Salvadoran restaurants, great Brazilian restaurants. It's really a fun place. And I am just so glad we had a chance to visit, to find out about Logan and to speak with you, Christine. We've had a really fun time speaking to the author of Logan and the Missing Crown Jewels. Our guest has been Christine Ritchie McNamee. Thanks for being with us, Christine.
Oh, thank you. Very nice and nice to meet with you, and it was a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We love communicating with our listeners on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids. At Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, and it's at Jedley Magic on Twitter. Please be sure to check out our Drawing with Your Kids series on YouTube. YouTube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, we'd love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, download our free online magazine, visit our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and use the contact button at the top of the page to send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we can be doing better. And please let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. And if you are an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans all about your great kids' books. You can also learn about our effective and very affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guests and sponsors. Of course, I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Skylar Strauss, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kaylin Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Hannah Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.